It's my pleasure this evening to introduce our SEL team. SEL stands for Social Emotional Learning. And what's amazing about this team is it's not a huge team, but they are able to accomplish amazing things in our district. And really their impact is felt in the lives of every one of our students and every one of our staff members. They have an amazing effect and impact on the district. So I'm very excited to introduce Dr. Helene Morris, and she'll introduce her entire team, and I promise you this will be a great presentation.
Well, good evening, President Talavera, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Pletka, Executive Cabinet, and all of our staff and community members who are here with us tonight. It is our pleasure to present tonight's Social Emotional Learning, or SEL Teaching and Learning presentation, which highlights our progress from the 2023-24 school year and helps to kick off our work for the 2024-25 school year. Okay, this is our team that has been serving our staff, students, and community this school year. I am Helene Morris, the Director of Administrative Services.
I'm Rosanna Fonseca, Director of Social Emotional Learning and Family Supports.
I'm Amy Soto-Longo. I'm the PBIS and 504 TOSA.
I'm Amy Lees, and I'm the SEL TOSA.
Michael Klein, I'm the lead counselor.
Our journey as the SEL Teaching and Learning team began 3 years ago when we presented our colorful framework to you. It was akin to revealing the iris of an eye with the pupil or student at its center. We shared our vision and logo, I see you, you are important, and you matter. Our vision took root and grew, much like the resilient bamboo that quietly strengthens underground while shooting skyward a massive 90 feet in 6 weeks. And we compared our progress to bamboo, signifying the growth of our efforts to nurture the social and emotional well-being of our students. And then, in the year that followed, we delved deeper, wielding our metaphorical dowsing rods to unearth hidden traumas beneath the surface. Inspired by Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris's book, The Deepest Well, we sought to find each child's groundwater, their struggles and trauma, so that we could provide the support and healing they deserved. And now we stand before you with pride and purpose, and with the groundwater mapped out, we have begun the intricate work of laying the pipes, which are the essential connections that ensure the flow and support of understanding. Because you see, ultimately, we are using our tools to build a house. But this is no ordinary house. We are building connections and laying down the pipes that will transport compassion and empathy to our students. Amy Soto-Longo reinforces the foundation of our house with PBIS, recognizing that every home, every child is built upon unique needs and experiences, including trauma. And with a foundation firmly in place, we turn to the framing, the structure that gives shape to our house. Drawing upon our Castle 5 framework, Amy Leaves carves out rooms that are purposely designed to support students in traumas. And Michael Klein, our master electrician, brings these rooms to life, sparking interests and connections that illuminate the path forward for our students. And as the final touches are put into place, Rosanna Fonseca oversees the inspection with meticulous care. Every detail is scrutinized, every surface polished, ensuring that our house is not just a structure, but a sanctuary, a place where every child feels seen, heard, and valued. And that includes some exciting next steps for our district and one special family we heard a little bit about already, and Rosanna will tell you about some more later in the presentation. So to our esteemed Board of Trustees and Cabinet, we offer a humble gift, a tape measure, not just a tool of measurement, but a symbol of our commitment to transparency and accountability with data. With it, we invite you to join us in measuring the progress of our students, which it says on here, tracking their growth and celebrating their achievement. Now, before we talk about our foundation, we must do some grading to level the land, or in this metaphor, our understanding. Grading land for a house's foundation means shaping and leveling the ground for stability. It includes removing excess soil, filling low spots, and it guarantees proper drainage to avoid water buildup around the foundation. So grading ensures a strong foundation and structural stability for the entire house. But beware of the villain of this story, negative grading. That's when the land slopes toward our house, causing water to pool around the foundation, leading to moisture issues, structural damage, and unwanted guests like mold and mildew. So remember, we must grade to code to keep our house standing strong. And tonight, I want to level our understanding. You see, I'm concerned about negative grading because that can lead to mold, which is poison to our minds. So I'm here to debunk some myths. Sometimes I hear people say things like, well, PBIS doesn't work, or PBIS only works for 50% of our students. And tonight, you will hear that Tier 1 PBIS is intended to work for about 75 to 85% of students. And it does. But it also means that 15% of Tier 2 PBIS students and the 5% of Tier 3 PBIS students will receive all of the Tier 1 interventions in addition to more intensive and targeted Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports. We call this the core and more, which Amy Sotolongo will elaborate upon. So if you've heard some of these myths, I ask you to please be open to tonight's presentation, because it is a misconception that PBIS is just about the prizes. The dirt has not been compacted enough if we do not realize that the SRSSIE, restorative practices, the second step curriculum, the CASEL 5 competencies, trauma-informed practices, Rethink Ed, and so on are all research-based. They come with what is known in the research community as white papers. I will also hear things like, yeah, but where's the data? I humbly ask, please be open to the practices and data we are about to show you. This is by no means perfect data. We still have flower beds to plant. Everything is not coming up roses. But we will do our house a great disservice if we make broad generalizations, such as saying that intensive Tier 3 student behaviors represent and reflect the intended outcomes of an entire program and student population. It's a misuse of the tool to expect Tier 1 PBIS interventions to work for students with Tier 3 needs and traumas. Thoughts are things. And that is why I begin by speaking life and truth over this work. Whew. Grading is some intensive work. So now it's my pleasure to turn to Amy Sotolongo, who will talk about our foundation.
All right. Building a house requires a very strong foundation. In creating that foundation, you need to follow multiple steps to ensure a successful future build. Some of these steps include preparing the site, excavating, formwork and pouring concrete, waterproofing, assessing damage, and completing multiple inspections over time. In the same way, we build a strong foundation for our students, families, and community through full implementation of PBIS, which is at our foundation. We teach our students the expectations of our schools, and we practice these expectations. We positively reinforce behavior, and we clearly define discipline policies on our campuses. And when challenging behaviors occur, each school has a flowchart to guide teachers in defining what's handled in the classroom and what may need administrators' attention. When students need more support than the Tier 1, we have Tier 2 supports in place to teach skills and cultivate growth. If students need intensive intervention, we have Tier 3 supports available as well. All right, now we have a clear understanding of the foundation. How do we know that what we are doing is working? We can use the MTSS, or the multi-tiered system of support model, to help us make a determination. The MTSS model shows us that because we have layered research-based practices like PBIS, restorative practices, trauma-informed practices, group counseling to develop skills, and so many more, and we do them with fidelity, we can expect that Tier 1 will meet the needs of approximately 75 to 85% of our students. For Tier 2, we can expect that approximately 10 to 15% of students may need more support. And for Tier 3, we expect to offer intensive individualized intervention to at least 5% of our students district-wide. So as you can see, PBIS is a research-based practice that yields expected outcomes. So with this model in mind, let's take a close look at our SRSSIE data. Currently, our teachers complete the student risk screening scale for internalizing and externalizing behavior also known as the SRSSIE, our universal behavior screener 3 times per year. In the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. This data is generated by the teachers based on their perspectives of their students. Once the screener is complete, how do our sites use this data? The data is used by our sites to identify all the students who may have areas of concern or need, which allows us to intervene early and give the support that's needed. Let's look at our data over the past 5 years to help us view the needs of our students. So as we look at the screener data over the course of the past 5 years, we see the 2019-2020 school year. This is the year that school closed in March, but this screener was taken in the fall, so that represents pre-pandemic data. The 2020-2021 school year started online and then moved to the 3 options of online, hybrid, or 5 days a week in October. This was a really tough year for all, but we only see a small uptick within the data as our district was highly intentional in meeting the needs of our students and families. The 2021-22 was the year we put everyone back on our 20 campuses and started school in August as we had prior to COVID. The past 2 years, we've continued the pre-pandemic calendar. So in looking at this data, does it match the ideal expected outcomes that the MTSS pyramid outlined? Do we have approximately 75 to 85% of students scoring in the low risk or the green category? Yes. Do we have approximately 10 to 15% of students scoring in the moderate or the yellow category? Yes. Do we have approximately 5% of students scoring in the high risk category or red? Yes. Clearly, if you're wondering if our program is working, it is. As we look at our spring data, it's important to note that we did not take the screener during the 2019-2020 school year due to school closure. So over the course of 4 years of data, we again see consistent rates of needs that have aligned to the MTSS pyramid model, signaling that the interventions we have in place are working and we're seeing the ideal expected outcomes.
Can I ask you a question? If you go back to that chart, that 10 to 15% in the red, are we seeing effective movement within that group and that the numbers are new children coming into that group each year?
Yeah, so as we look at students with the screener and we place them in tier 2 and tier 3, we also have, like we call them data decision-making rules, like how do we place a child into an intervention and how do we fade them out? And so we use those data decision-making rules to place them and also to fade them. So yes, we have students who we take the screener and we're like, oh, this student popped up, something's happening, contact family, offer intervention. And then we also have students like, hey, these students have been in this group and they're really using these skills. We're not seeing the need that we saw before, and we're going to start to fade them out. So yes, it is a flow. It is not like a solid, like these are all the same kids within this graph.
Can I ask a history question too then? When you produce that data from starting, I think, 2019, or 2019, sorry, when did we introduce the current PBIS program that we have and our SEL lessons? I wasn't on the board at that time, so I'd love to know how those correlate with that data. Do we know?
Our current PBIS has been in place for 10 years?
Yeah.
10 years, and this team has been intact. This is year 4 for us.
Okay. So
We will be going into SEL and talking about that data and that program from when it started and showing you some data too. So if you stick with us, I'm hoping we'll get to where you want to go.
All right. And during the 2022-23 school year, our teachers began screening 3 times a year as an effective way to have 3 points of data and 3 opportunities to identify needs amongst our students. Our winter data shows the same consistent level of need that we see in the spring and the fall. All right, so once our sites have reviewed their data, what interventions do we have available to support our students? So as you can see from the chart, our tier 1 or core or green section of the pyramid is for all of our students. This includes teaching behavior expectations, implementing positive reinforcement systems, following daily classroom routines, acknowledging, giving feedback, and rewarding positive behavior, teaching SEL lessons to all of our students, implementing classroom circles, and using trauma-informed practices. In the yellow, you see that students at Tier 2 receive the core, so all of the Tier 1 in the green, and more, such as small groups, social skills, small group counseling, behavior contracts, peer mentoring, lunch bunch, restorative circles, and trauma-informed practices. In fact, we'd like to highlight that in tonight's consent agenda, you'll be approving 2 community partnerships, Ruthie already alluded to, that will help bring more intensive and needed trauma-informed services to our students. So in red, you can see students at Tier 3 receive the core and more, such as personalized behavior intervention plans, one-to-one therapy or counseling, mentorship, wraparound services, intensive informed practices, and restorative conferences. So as we circle back to our MTSS pyramid model, let's look at one last time at our data through this lens. Does our fall, winter, and spring data align to the model? Yes. Does our data match the ideal expected outcomes? Yes. And if you're wondering if what we're doing is working, the answer is yes. All right, with our PBIS foundation secure, how do we inspect it and make sure it's level into code? Did you know there's a process? We have 18 platinum and 2 gold level schools recognized in 2023. How did they receive this recognition? Through a process that includes a rubric called the Tiered Fidelity Inventory, or another acronym, TFI. It's a rubric that our staff and teachers use to audit and rate their own systems and implementation of PBIS on their own school campuses. Our staff is the voice behind this data. This graph you currently see is the growth over time on the TFI scoring and ultimately campuses district-wide. Look at how we've grown as a district over the past 6 years. The growth over time is amazing. Our school teams utilize the California PBIS recognition application as its final inspection on the site's PBIS framework, also known as our foundation. In order to be awarded at the platinum level, each school site submits a 10-page application to the California PBIS Coalition. It's a rigorous process, as you can see by reading through some of the criteria highlighted on this slide. This past spring, for the very first time, all 20 FSD schools applied for platinum level recognition, the highest level of award. FSD currently holds 18 awards with the hope that this September we'll receive 20. We're looking forward to sharing this recognition with our board this October. And now Amy Lees will talk about our framework.
Could I just ask you, this is so impressive, how successful. And the St. Jude Community Committee is the group that first brought this to us. And it was an honor to represent us on that committee. It still is. I think that they would be so tickled if you brought this data to them to share, to see that the money they have given us through these last 10 years has made a significant difference in the behaviors in our schools and has done what they were dreaming it would do when they first gave it, I think, to 2 schools here.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd be honored to do that.
That
absolutely.
would be so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so as many of us know, the framework of a home is just as important as its foundation. It serves as the bones of a home, and everything else ties into it. From electrical to the sheetrock that forms the walls, from plumbing pipes to windows, all of the systems of a home pass through this complex structure of wood framing. The framer is responsible for devising plans, assembling the framework structure, and most importantly, finding the appropriate materials needed for the project and managing the schedule. The duties of a framer involve physical work and attention to detail. There are instances when one must operate various power tools and equipment, understand blueprints, and even climb up high places. In the Fullerton School District, our SEL framework is based on the competencies provided by the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, or the CASEL 5. This includes 5 broad and interrelated areas of competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Just as the framer has many duties and responsibilities in order for their homes to be safe and secure, we as teachers and FSD staff feel it is our duty to help our students develop these CASEL 5 competencies as we strive to equip them with life skills so they can thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. Also, just as a framer must operate various tools and equipment and understand the blueprints for the project to be successful, we use various assessments to monitor our students' mental health throughout the year and continually progress monitor the delivery of our SEL program's second step, as we consider it to be the blueprint for the success of our program. On this slide, I'm going to focus on second step. Again, second step is a research-based program which, as Celine mentioned, has what is known in the research community as a white paper. Studies show that second step curriculum is an effective Tier 1 curriculum. So 3 years ago, we adopted a new SEL curriculum called Second Step. Second Step's review of research notes that this program has been found to help students acquire the skills, knowledge, and mindset needed to persevere through challenges, set and achieve goals, handle strong emotions, better understand and connect with others, and resolve interpersonal conflicts. In addition, Second Step has been found to help develop students' executive function skills and promotes a growth mindset, contributing to a positive classroom and school climate that serves as the foundation for academic and social success. It is important to note that research and studies show that this program is effective, but most importantly, it's effective for its intended purpose, which is to provide a curriculum and resources to support the development of social and emotional skills. In our first year, our main focus was rolling out the program, getting access for all our teachers, and supporting them in providing these lessons to our students. The second year, our teachers became more invested in the program as they saw how beneficial these lessons and skills were for their students. Now here we are, 3 years later, and starting at year 4, our students have received over 18,000 second step lessons thanks to the dedication of our amazing FSD teachers. This significant effort in delivering social emotional learning instruction has had a profound impact on our students' overall well-being and academic success. We are very thankful for all our educators for their commitment to nurturing social and emotional development of our students. Later in the presentation, Rosanna will show that we know the program works, as shown by the growth and improvement of students' social emotional skills through our progress monitoring tool. It is an honor to support FSD students, staff, and parents. Over the past 3 years, the scope of my work has involved providing support to students through classroom lessons, SEL circles, modeling trauma-informed practices, restorative conferences, assemblies, and more. Teachers and administrators frequently seek additional SEL support, and I've developed and delivered custom lessons tailored to address current needs and situations. Additionally, I've offered professional development opportunities, modeled restorative practices, trauma-informed practices, collaborated with teachers and PLCs, and supported new teachers in the induction process. Our monthly SEL newsletter is filled with current SEL research, district-wide SEL initiatives, local SEL trainings, and a kindness calendar for all staff and students. Working with parents has been a privilege, and I've had the opportunity to present at Coffee with the Principal, Champions for Learning, and PTA meetings. As a team, we consistently update our district SEL website with the latest data and suggestions for how parents can support students at home with SEL skills. Continuously advancing our own education and SEL knowledge is important to our team, and we regularly attend new trainings to stay current on best practices. Over the past 3 years, we've participated in numerous trainings focused on SEL strategies, restorative practices, PBIS, and trauma-informed practices. And during the 23-24 school year, we also attended trainings focused on helping students stay safe, including safe spaces and Know More, Do Better and Ensure Justice trainings, which were both provided by Vanguard University in partnership with OCDE. And now Michael Klein will share about our school counseling.
Hi, good evening. Okay, so in this metaphor, school counseling represents the electrical system, a visible yet essential network that powers everything within. Just like electricity illuminates every room and powers every appliance, school counseling serves as a conduit for lighting students' paths and energizing their potential. We're the ones who wire connections, ensuring that every student has access to the resources and support they need to thrive. Each school counselor conducts lunch groups, forming circles of connection and empowerment. These lunchtime groups aren't just about nourishing bodies, they're about feeding minds and hearts, strengthening rapport, empowering students to shine their brightest in a supportive community, and fighting through the challenges of traumatic experiences. On this slide, you'll see images of individual counselors leading their lunch groups. And to protect the confidentiality of our students, we put little smiley faces over them, so they don't actually look like that, so don't worry. We have Carolyn Conley fostering emotional exploration and support for her girls at Woodcrest. You got Laura Guadarrama guiding students through mindfulness and yoga at Commonwealth. Thomas Torres instilling leadership skills at Nicholas. Myself teaching about emotional control in a boys group at Woodcrest. And Christy Kim leading the group during Kindness Week outside of Fistler. These images are a testament to the collaborative effort powering students' growth and well-being. Did I go the right way? No? Down. Technology. Okay. And then consider our innovative field trips with the high school district for 8th grade students keen on specific pathways. These excursions transcend sightseeing. They offer firsthand glimpses into potential futures, igniting excitement as students explore career possibilities aligned with their interests and talents. Displayed on this slide, this is back. Oh, do I push it? Well, that's a hurdle to get over. So that, there's pictures behind that, just so you know, okay? So I'll talk about them manually. You'll kind of get a peek.
Imagine those other pictures.
I know. Okay, so displayed on those slides, somehow in the background, are snapshots of these transformative experiences. Beachwood and Park students with Counselor Jason Lee, and he is on there, at Toyota Arena in Ontario, immersing themselves in sports career opportunities. Christy Kim leading her students through the Sunny Hills High School Gaming and Coding program, and myself alongside Kristen Montoya. Shout out Kristen Montoya, you're on there. Just trust me.
I'm skinny there.
You're like that electrical switch that no one can really get out. Like it's somewhere back there that.
We're gonna I'm trying to search through this. So, exploring the advanced culinary program at Fullerton High School with their culinary 8th grade students at Ladera Vista, and hopefully we can do that again this year too with you, Kristen. And finally, our advanced robotics class at Nicholas, led by Mr. Peter Correa, coming in first place at the Mario Kart competition at Buena Park High School, which is pretty cool because everyone that they were competing against was high schoolers, and our 8th graders actually won the competition. So that was cool, and it was like they made the gym look like Mario Kart and everything. So as counselors, we collaborate closely with high school districts to ensure all 8th grade students are well prepared for their transition to high school. Additionally, we support the seamless transition of 6th graders into junior high, working in tandem with elementary schools to assess needs and provide necessary support, ensuring a smooth transition into the junior high experience and beyond. Okay, that one works. There we go. Okay, so you can also imagine us as guardians of the grid, protecting against the surges and shocks that threaten our students' well-being. We're leading the charge in the fight against fentanyl, human trafficking, and internet dangers, acting as a resource for awareness, safety, and being trauma-informed. We're shedding light on the dangers of fentanyl and hazards lurking online through district-wide videos, educational initiatives, and valuable educational conferences. We're sparking conversations with students on difficult topics, empowering these students to make informed choices, equipping students with the knowledge and skills to recognize warning signs and make wise decisions, and seek help with trusted adults when needed, and ensuring that they navigate the real-world landscape as well as the digital landscape with caution and confidence. So one of the biggest parts of our jobs as counselors at each site is that we rely on data to illuminate the way forward. So imagine the screen above as an electrical control panel, displaying numerous measuring points that we utilize to filter and analyze our data. These data points, which you can see written up there on the screen, include the SRSS IE data, From teachers, Rethink Ed self-survey scores that students do, signs of suicide assessment scores that counselors keep track of, and mental health also does that as well as many others on there. They act as guideposts, helping us to narrow down specific supports for individual students based on their unique needs and strengths. This data isn't just numbers. It's a roadmap to identifying students who may need additional support. Consider the rise in major depression among U.S. teens. Also on the chart there, it's a nationwide mental health crisis exacerbated by the surge in social media use. As you can see in the graph, girls in particular tend to struggle the most, but all students are definitely showing that we are in a mental health crisis in this country. As counselors, we are in a unique position to identify these students who may be depressed or experiencing suicidal ideation, but have not sought help. So we sift through the data, identifying those who may be flying under the radar, those that might have high GPAs but declining performance, irregular attendance, or just low self-esteem scores. So allow me to share a quick story to illustrate the power of filtering data and its impact on student support. During our quarterly counselor checks, as we meticulously sifted through the data, we stumbled upon a significant change in the academic performance of one student. This particular student had consistently been a high performer, boasting high already scores, SBAC scores, and they had a 4.0 GPA all throughout their 7th grade year and the first semester for the 8th grade year. And the next quarter, for progress reports, their GPA had plummeted to 2.5. So despite their previous academic success, the students' decline caught our attention. Because their team GPA, combined with their low risk on the SRSS survey and consistent attendance, it didn't really show us too many red flags. And it would be easy to overlook this student and focus on those other students who might be more outwardly displaying needs for help. But however, upon closer examination, we also noticed a decline in the student's self-assessment score on the Rethink Ed survey, dropping 2 levels, which is quite a bit, during the same period. This discrepancy in the data raised that red flag. Despite the family not disclosing any struggles, the filtered and updated data spoke volumes. So armed with this newfound insight, we swiftly intervened, checked in with the student, and realized that they had recently lost their grandmother. And they were extremely close to their grandmother. The student had been devastated and reacted in a way that showed significant trauma. We were able to then provide support to the student, provide support to the families, and give them access to different resources that they desperately needed. The student was able to make a full recovery within that same quarter and raise their GPA back up at 4.0. And that extra support that they had got them the 4.0 for the rest of the year too as well. So they actually had a 4.0 the whole year. So this is just one example of how data serves as a powerful tool for prevention and how it's important to use multiple measures when assessing students. So by leveraging data effectively, we can take a proactive approach and intervene early, providing the necessary support to students before they reach that crisis point. So now I'm going to charge Rosanna for the next part.
Quick question, just real quick. So when you guys figure out what's causing kind of some of that declining of performance, do you guys kind of categorize those and kind of have that data for us?
Yeah, so we go through it pretty strong with each quarterly check and each progress report. And we'll notice most kids will be pretty consistent across the board, but then we're able to pick out the ones that are declining and provide interventions. And it depends on what's going on, but it could be different interventions. And then we also will find the students who are improving too and give them a nice little pat in the back. It's pretty amazing how little it takes to get a kid motivated and going, just as long as you recognize them. But
it'd be amazing to see. Yeah, it'd be amazing to see both those that are succeeding and kind of what's causing the success, and then also seeing what's causing some of the declining academic components. So if you can share that, that'd be great.
I would love to.
Just
I
kind of
nerd out on it. So if you have time,
for sure. I became a data nerd, believe it or not. Yeah. So appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll be besties.
Y'all would be very interested, especially if you're seeing trends that we can be aware of, and that helps us then support you if you say we need this sort of programming or these are the issues we want to teach lessons around. Like, it helps us be supportive in if we're seeing trends that we need to address.
Yeah, and that'd be great because you guys, I mean, there's a lot of tracks we can go off of. and I try to find as many as possible. So as many eyes as possible that can help out and find more, it would be amazing. So yeah. Should I just stay over here?
Sorry, go ahead, Rosanna.
No. The Rethink Ed Student Self-Reported Survey, as Michael was sharing, serves the role as an inspector, meticulously assessing the social and emotional learning skills of students in grades 3 through 8th. Similar to an inspector, this survey provides valuable insight into students' self-perception of their own social emotional learning competencies over time. It acts as a tool to identify students' SEL needs, enabling educators to create customized learning plans and interventions for enhancing students' social and emotional development. Students take the survey on their devices, and the reports generated help identify the social emotional needs of all students, including the students that require Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 supports. The Rethink Ed Student Self-Reported Survey uses scores ranging from very high to very low to measure the social emotional learning skills. High and very high scores indicate strong and above average SEL skills, while the low and very low scores indicate areas where students need some enhanced social emotional skills. The average score suggests a balance of strengths and areas of growth. The data presented on this slide shows the survey results starting in fall 2022, which really established our baseline, compared to our current progress that is used as our progress monitoring tool. One thing to note is that in fall 2022, which is the blue line, you can see that it has an unusual distribution, with the majority of the students scoring low in the low range, so it's kind of tilted. However, when we compare the baseline data with our current progress of spring 2024, we found a more typical bell-shaped curve is beginning to emerge. We have observed a decrease of 10% in the number of students perceiving their skills to be very low, and an increase of 9% in the students considering their skills to be average, high, and very high. Our staff members have analyzed and used this data to make informed decisions. During the 23-24 school year, they utilized over 3,800 resources from Rethink Ed to provide additional Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports to students. This data supports what we know. Our program is working. Our social services assistants and community liaisons provide essential supports for our families, particularly those experiencing homelessness and foster youth, by skillfully addressing their specific needs. Their dedication adds the final polish and finesse, creating a strong foundation for the well-being and success of our students and family, leaving a lasting positive impact on our school community. Additionally, they maintain regular contact with families, addressing their basic needs through the Hub Family Resource Center, engaging in daily check-ins with students, providing crucial mentorship and support. These check-ins are vital for ensuring that our students and families consistently feel seen, heard, and valued. Our IIS and MNO department, as well as Nicholas Junior High School students, joined forces to build a tiny house for a family in the Fullerton School District. The SEL team was honored to play a role in choosing the family that would receive this wonderful gift. The selected family, who was facing housing insecurities, was deeply touched to be chosen for such a meaningful opportunity. The parent was visibly moved, even to the point of tears, at the feeling so grateful and relieved that finally they had a stable and safe place to call home after a long period of uncertainty. In this way, our metaphor rings true, because FSD literally built a house. Just as a house needs a solid foundation to stand strong, we recognize that each student requires a stable base of support to thrive and reach their full potential. We're proud to be part of a district that embraces innovative practices beyond the imagination. We are excited about the path ahead as we continue this important work. To thrive, heal from trauma, and reach their full potential. Students need social emotional learning, positive behavior intervention and supports, restorative practices, and trauma-informed practices. Similarly, just as a house needs pipes, grading, a solid foundation, framework, electrical work, finishes, and meticulous inspections to stand strong, students need these essential elements to build a strong foundation for their growth. Thank you. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have before we move on to part 2, where Jeremy Davis, Assistant Superintendent of Innovation and Instructional Supports, and Pablo Diaz, IIS Director, present about digital citizenship.
Thank
I
you
just
so much.
wanted to add a couple things. First of all, thanks to the whole team. I actually look forward to Helene's team's metaphors every year. It was fun to see the new one. We went from bamboo to construction, and maybe apropos for this November, our construction theme. But I wanted to point out a couple things and try to make two connections from this presentation to kind of what happened at the end of the year. So when you hear, in essence, PBIS is working, what that means is for 75 to 85% of the kids, it works. In fact, we're very fortunate. If you go into Darlene's in the past, Darlene's class, kindergarten, I was many times in Darlene's class, Pamela's class, you go to Shelley's, we're very fortunate to have really good teachers. When you go in there, most of the time, with most kids, there's order, there's routines and procedures. They are very clear about what they expect from kids. When kids are doing it right, they acknowledge it. When kids need extra attention, they give them extra attention. So PBIS is meant, in fact, back in the old days, they didn't call it PBIS, but clear expectations, feedback for kids, consequences, and acknowledgement when kids are doing things right, and relationships are the foundation of every good classroom, I'll say every good teacher, probably for thousands of years. What we're experiencing with the post-pandemic is a larger number of kids experiencing those tier 3 behaviors. That's the group that we need to continue to look for supports. That's the group that the behavior committee worked really hard to come up with new ideas. And if you look at it, the data, and I remember Darlene spoke and she said, well, it's for about 5% of the kids, it's not working, PBIS. And tonight I saw the data, it was like 6%. So I don't know, Nostradamus in the case of Darlene here. But I think the piece that we all want to do is, yes, clear expectations, acknowledging kids when they do things right. That continues to be the basis for what we all need to do. In fact, we have PBIS in here. We read our expectations on how long, public comments, what we expect. We acknowledge when a speaker, thank you so much, we appreciate it. Those are the sorts of things good teachers, good organizations do all the time. The piece we need to do better at, and by the way, and I'm very fortunate, I belong to two very large superintendents group. One is a president, the Southern California Supes group, and also as a member of the Orange County Superintendents group. Everybody is experiencing this kind of 5 to 6% of students that need that extra support. We need to do more for the 5 to 6%. And by the way, there's no one out there who's like figured this out. Like, oh, for the kids with the extreme. And let's go back to what Michael said. The child that lost their grandmother. PBIS and clear expectations for that day wasn't working because they needed more. And, I try sometimes not to say from the dais, but we have some cases where we have families, and I had a student I promised I was mentoring, and his father's a gang member and sold drugs. And we don't have an answer. We have supports and help. So we're going to continue to need to work together to try to help. The boy that in our tiny home that literally was on the floor with 15 other people in a one-bedroom apartment. PBIS isn't enough. So as we move forward, we don't want to get into this either or. We need to have clear expectations. Like I said, you want to see a master class? You can go into any of these three ladies' classrooms. A master class in clear expectations, but it doesn't solve all the problems. We had a runner in kinder. We have several runners right now in the district. We have some that also cry in kindergarten and TK, and we're going to need to do more. So I want to acknowledge two things. We have a good team. We have a good team of people that are working on this. And we do have answers for a lot of the problems. And we need more answers, and we will continue to work together, because the one thing I know, this is an amazing team. And you want to see some great teachers doing great things, just get out there. But it hasn't fixed it all. And we're not alone. And the solution is continued hard work together. The behavior committee, we came up with a great plan. I promise you it's not going to work 100%. I promise you there's going to be problems. And we're going to meet back, and we're going to address those problems, and we're going to keep working the problem. And that's because we have a great group. So I want to acknowledge first a great thank you. And I do love the metaphor. I'm literally was like smiling the first 5 minutes, just Helene, so thanks for that. And I want to acknowledge the work that the committee did to address the 5% that we need to continue to do more for.
Good.
Thank you for all the work and for all the work to put in this presentation to help us understand, because it is certainly complex and there are so many different pieces. I'm beginning to understand how they fit together better, so thank you for that. Could we go back to that slide that it was when we talked about the different schools being platinum level PBIS, because it was acknowledging different impacts of PBIS that I was just curious. It went so fast I didn't really get to see it. Okay, so classroom expectations are aligned, 80% of students with 0 or 1 major referral, okay, 70% on TFI.
Yeah, that's like that's the criteria to meet, right? Platinum status.
So the coalition, California PBIS Coalition, offers recognition every year, and so schools apply based on their implementation, and so they can apply. They apply platinum, they apply gold, they apply silver, so all the way down. And so if you have full implementation, so this is the platinum criteria, and this is pretty robust. So you have all of your classroom expectations are aligned to your school-wide PBIS. You have 80% of your students that have only had 1 major referral. They have a 70% on tiered fidelity inventory, which is like 19 to 20 items for tier 1, 2, and 3. So you're looking at like 60 different things that you're going through and auditing with your team. And they do that in the spring. That they have positive data for tier 2 and 3 interventions that shows growth. So we have to disclose that what intervention, like you apply with 1 intervention and you give the growth. So, you know, you can apply group counseling, and we have this many students that have made this much growth. And then you have 2 student groups with significant iReady scores. So for platinum, you apply at all 3 tiers, 1, 2, and 3 with full implementation. For gold, you apply with 2 tiers, so everyone applies 1, and then you choose either 2 or 3. Silver means you have tier 1 at 70%, and then, oh my gosh, bronze, thank you. Bronze is that you have, I believe it's like just 70% in just tier 1. So
that's great.
30%
This helps me understand the impact of PBIS, I think, because you know, to say, okay, kids are sorted into these categories, and just like we would predict 80% are in this category and 10 and then 5, if we're seeing what we expect, you know, we're just following patterns. But this is telling us that those patterns then with the interventions at tier 2 and 3, that we're making progress. It's the counseling, it's the lunch bunches, it's the, you know, interventions that are making the difference, and that's the positive growth that really is meaningful. So thank you for sharing this. I wanted to make sure we're emphasizing that it's not just that we're finding kids in the right categories, but we're actually moving them from the tiers 2 and 3 into that lower category and addressing their needs in those spaces.
Yeah, for all 20 of our schools to apply Platinum means that we have full implementation at all 3 tiers. And so it's a big accomplishment. It's a very robust 10-page application that sites put together in the spring and submit to the state. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That would be interesting to see those applications after they're submitted. Really, to see at each site what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you so much.